live in 3, 2, 1, going live. Hello, my friends. We are live again for another episode of Talk Power BI. Good to be hanging out with you. And today, of course, we have a special topic and a special guest. Now, of course, for a lot of you, you've really realized that we live in an increasingly global world. And of course, it applies to the big businesses with vendors, suppliers, and supply chains all over the world. But I really think that it applies to any business now. And because we are interconnected in a way, and we do get impacted by events across the world from us, whether we like it or not, as you've seen happening quite a bit in recent news. But I really think that data is our friend. Data is our way out. It can light our path, show us the way. And we're going to have our special guest, Christian Osborne, take us on a tour there today. So he's going to be showing us the dashboard he has built, but not just that. He's going to be telling us, sharing with us some of the stories that these dashboards tell. So it's going to be a pretty exciting affair. So buckle up for that. So Christian Osborne, I have known him for a while. In fact, he has been featured earlier on our channel as well. Many of you may have watched his earlier video as well. If not, go back and find that. It's a pretty inspiring talk, and you can find that on my channel. And he's had a pretty kind of long and eventful journey to kind of get here. He runs an independent Power BI consulting firm, BI Builders Inc., and we have links to connect to Christian if you like what he shows here. And he's like, hey, maybe our company could use some of that Power BI Pixie Magic Dust too. Then you have a way to reach out to Christian. And again, the link is just in the description. Before we dive into that, I did want to say thank you to everybody who applied to our Pro Plus program, formerly known as Six Figures Power BI Consultant. We had close to 100 applications from all over the world, and we've had a really new and exciting batch ready. It's very global for sure, and we have members from Peru, Brazil, Netherlands, and of course US, and I don't know if we need to mention Canada separately, but yes, an exciting group, and we're ready to kind of get that started, and you'll be hearing a lot more from those folks as well. So folks, you're watching us on YouTube. Just type in and let us know where you're calling in from. And I can already see some hellos here. We have Romain, Ari, Jen is here. Hey Jen, always good to see you. Charles Elwood is here. That's Solis Matica, folks. Ram Prasad is here. Sanjay Juan says hello from Mexico. And Romain says hi from Shanghai. So let's kick off our topic. So Christian, before you know what, do you mind? Are you sharing a screen right now?
I should be. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can find that. Okay, hold on, guys. Let's try that again. I think somehow I got turned off. So go ahead and share your screen, or hit that green button again, and just show us a teaser, a preview of what we're about to see. If you can bring up just one of the dashboard slides or something
Sure.
before we kind of launch into that. Ooh. All right, guys, I'm gonna bring it over on the screen. Just give us 1 second. Stephen Mon, Regina, Hong, Danny. Hello to all of you, friends. All right. Well, or yeah, I mean, you can just bring up the presentation, whichever is
Yeah, that
easier.
might be better.
Okay, awesome. So great. So guys, you seeing a screenshot of what's kind of in store, And again, it's not just about the visual, it's the story behind the visual. But before we dive into that, Christian, tell us a bit about your company, what you do, who you help.
Yeah, so my stakeholders, so first off, I'm in an enterprise level company, a pretty big tech company here in the Seattle region.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what I do for a living is basically optimize fulfillment within the supply chain, and that's a huge problem. Uh, so basically, working with different stakeholders across the supply chain from planning and sourcing parts and getting the best deal
Mm-hmm.
to effectively shipping them and mitigating risk and
Yeah.
getting them to the end customer, which could be a big box retailer like Amazon or Best Buy or anywhere like that, and then ultimately into the hands of the customer. So it's a big space to tackle. There's lots of stakeholders, and it's all about moving a lot of product.
Yeah. Great. But what about the kind of clients you serve through your company, BI Builders? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so on the consultancy side, a lot of people who are trying to get into training as well as doing custom development.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a lot of people within the healthcare space more recently,
Mm-hmm.
some supply chain folks as well, given my background and kind of expertise.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it kind of runs the gamut. It really depends on the problem. A lot of the areas I've gone deep are within the training space for both data science and Power BI. And then more on the custom development side, I've been playing a lot in healthcare and supply chain. So
Awesome.
those have been kind of my sweet spots.
Uh, Give us a sense. Is I know you travel a little bit. What's your mix for travel versus working remote, helping these clients remotely?
Yeah, so I really believe on a hands-on approach.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it doesn't, you know, lead to more dollars in my own account, I think that face-to-face interaction and really developing on site makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Awesome.
Helps me build more rapport and trust and credibility with my stakeholders. And
Yeah.
I always tell them if I'm on site, you get me for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like I have nothing really, on the agenda while I'm there.
Yeah, you don't hold anything back. Awesome, folks. So hey, so again, the link to reach out to Christian if you kind of need help is there. So awesome. Take us through your presentation, Christian. I can't wait for this. It's gonna be awesome.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Avi. Can you guys see the projected presentation, or do I lose it when I do that?
No, we can see it. Yeah. Oh, uh, did it, I think it turned off for a little bit. It's starting again. Yep, now
Okay.
it's full screen. We can see it beautifully. Yep.
Great. So as I said, my I'm an applied data scientist. For this particular case study, I was helping supply chain fulfillment logistics enterprise level company. And I'm going to walk you through the story. You'll see the dashboards and the reports, and I'll talk about those a little more in
Mm-hmm.
depth. But I definitely want to stress defining your KPIs. There's a great book out there. It's OKRs, I believe, by an old IBM guy.
Mm.
It's all about measuring your performance, but I would recommend that book as well. So defining our KPIs is always the first step that I walk a customer through, and it's really defining what the core levers are to measure your business. And to define how to measure your performance within your business, you really need to know the business side. And so for those of you who are coming in from a technical perspective, it's really taking the time to know your customer, understand the pain points, and do kind of all that project manager due diligence. It's not the funnest thing in the world coming from the tech side, but it's
Yeah.
definitely necessary. So yeah, understanding the core levers of the business. What I found out within the supply chain is that it's a very operational space by nature, and therefore a lot of the metrics we have two different types. We have more of like analytics and insight and driving new innovation and optimization, but really at its core, anywhere that I've seen on a supply chain, it's really about getting in monitoring metrics because it's a very tactical space, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
things are moving really, really quickly, and you can't afford to miss something 3 weeks late. You don't want a shipment to receive, be dropped off at a customer's location late. You can't make day one sales. It's a very, very tight window kind of place. And so I'll talk a lot about operational metrics today and why they're super important and how this particular customer is using them.
Awesome.
Um, and this kind of goes back to my earlier point on the first bullet about knowing the business. Really, within an operations organization, it's really end to end. It's a big picture. You're really solving for uh, global optimas. So small changes here and there across the process may have negative effects in other places. So it's really understanding the whole workflow on how product moves. And the beautiful thing is any particular customer that has a physical good has a supply chain. So I'm going to talk to you guys about supply chain here. For this particular case study, we have a manufacturer, also known as a CM, so a contract manufacturer, where you basically cut a check to them and say, "Hey, assemble some units for me, whatever the physical good is." The next is we ship that from wherever the contract manufacturer is to distribution centers, or think of them as warehouses. Within the warehouses, that's where we're going to store our physical goods until we're ready to sell them. These could be anywhere in the world. It's just basically you want to make sure these are centrally located to where your customers are going to purchase.
Yeah.
And then the next for this particular case study is we then move that product to fulfill orders from big box retailers. So think of your Amazons, your Best Buys, Safeways, anything like that, where they're going to order that product and then distribute it or sell it to the end customer, which would be, people like you and I who go to the store and we buy a physical good.
Yeah.
So this is at a very, very high level. There's a lot of nuance, but that's basically the flow. And as you could imagine, if you go and return, let's say, a computer or a set of headphones or anything, it's going to go in what we call a reverse supply chain, which is it's going to go back to some warehouse from the customer, and then maybe back all the way to all the way back to the manufacturer to fix it or do a reassembly or maybe scrap out parts.
Yeah.
And so we won't talk about reverse supply chain, but that's the flip side, and it's there's an equal amount of work in that as well. On how do we optimize for yield, or we don't want to throw away parts, or maybe you want to do a refurbish. So if you look at like Apple, they have refurbish programs where maybe they had a physical good that was returned and they repaired it. It gets quite complex, but this is all the arrows going to the right signify what we call outbound within supply chain. We're going to ship product from one point to point A to point B with some stops along the way.
Got it. Something that you said did kind of catch my attention, where you talked about how uh, one part can kind of impact the other, and of course we've seen that kind of sometimes, kind of the unintended consequences. You make a change here, you don't realize, and that something else gets impacted in some other spot. And of course, we've seen kind of the other variations where you try to solve a problem in one spot, but all you end up doing is just squeezing the bubble, right? I mean, you just moved it from one spot to the other. But now that I'm thinking about it, I really think that even the folks who are not in supply chain can get a lot out of it, because essentially what it's showing is a big kind of interconnected system. And which
Mm-hmm.
business doesn't have that, right? I mean, even if you don't have supply chain, I mean, all the problems that you talked about, right? Where how do you realize, how do you figure out that, hey, this change here, how does it impact me in the other system? Everybody has that. So I think there's something to learn, regardless of whether you're doing this kind of stuff or not. So think of it as kind of a complicated system, lots of moving parts, and yeah, Power BI is here to help. All right, okay.
Yeah, that's a great point, Avi. Yeah, it's all about dependency management, understanding all your dependencies. If I make too much product in manufacturing and
Yeah,
there's not enough space in my warehouse, I have a new problem. My
yeah,
my my I'm making enough product really quickly, and that's great. And Power BI is measuring that. But now that is causing a new problem, which I thought was a good problem to have, and now it's not.
yeah, yeah. All right, carry on, mate. Good stuff.
So once we have the process outlined, we talked about KPIs and setting those in place. So we kind of understand the business at a high level. Now, after sitting on site with the customer and talking with them, we understand, or I understood from them, that at the end of the day, we really distilled the two KPIs. One is time. What is the time that's going to take for me to move a product from, let's say, China, Mexico, anywhere where there's going to be a manufacturing plant, maybe Detroit, and we move that to to an end customer. They purchase it on in the store, or let's say the time between me assembling a physical good and having it be at my big box retailers. They put an order in and they expect it next month, and I need to make sure it hits that. Now, the second thing to do with time is cost, right? I need to be able to ship, you know, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of my products to physical locations across the world. And I need to do that at cost where it makes sense for me to actually run the supply chain. If I'm losing a lot of money in shipping, then it doesn't necessarily make sense, or I may not be profitable. So, from a fulfillment and logistics perspective, those are our two main things or variables that in Power BI we want to measure and optimize. Now, once we understood the variables, we had to make our KPIs. And that kind of leads me to what we consider OTP, on time to promise, and CPU, cost per unit. That's really how we measure our business within fulfillment logistics. If my CPU is super, super high, then that's affecting the bottom line, and I may not be in business for a long time. If my on time to promise is really crappy and I'm always missing my SLAs, you know, week after week, then maybe customers aren't getting the service they want from our supply chain and they're going to stop ordering.
All right.
So think of we had an actual situation where think of for the big retailers or people with product best Black Friday, right? Imagine if all of your product wasn't there on the shelves on Black Friday.
Yeah.
That would
Oh, it's a day
sales.
late.
Yeah. Um, so those are really the two measures that we ended up going for. Now, here's one of the dashboards that we've created, or that I created, and we're talking about. I'll kind of go in depth across the top right on the slicers first.
Hmm.
When I say flow, we talked about the arrows going to the right earlier, and that's outbound. It's anything leaving a facility in order to get to a customer. So outbound from a warehouse goes to a customer's warehouse or Best Buy store or Safeway store or wherever. Um, Outbound from a manufacturer goes to maybe our warehouse, or maybe it goes direct to the customer. It's just when outbound is a flow for leaving, I'm leaving somewhere. Do I get this? Do I get the product out the door? Now, inbound is on receiving, right? It's the other side. So we're measuring each little lane. So if I am shipping stuff from my manufacturing plant to some sort of holding facility, that holding facility is inbound, and so there's product moving into the holding facility, and so I'm going to measure basically the performance of my manufacturer getting it to me, and that's inbound. Outbound would then be me maybe putting on a sticker or some sort of sale price or slash price and sending that to maybe a store, and that's outbound. And then the store is I'm taking an inbound from the holding facility. So
Got it.
anyhow, that's the flow, and that's not talking about reverse at all. My mode would be potentially, am I going into AOC or into the US? Am I leaving the US? Maybe I'm holding product in the US and then it's going outbound into Canada or let's say South America. Now we have different countries that are maybe going to if you're if you're managing a global supply chain, and then we have different accounts or channels. Commercial, maybe it's going straight to a particular commercial account that you've made a sale with, or maybe a brick and mortar store if you have your own, online sales, things like that. Now, we talked about the percent on time. So we have net on time and gross on time. And we measure that by units shipped. So how many units were on time and how many weren't. And you can see here we have direct ship to the customer, and that seems to be doing well. And then basically anything that's red on this legend here, we mark as late.
All right.
Now, we slice it by a couple different perspectives, one being the mode. So, which global region is doing the worst? Also by the location. So the location could be a manufacturing plant or a holding facility. We can see maybe Singapore, had a rough week.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of late units. Now, we don't know by this graph if it's an inbound shipment to them that was late or an outbound. We'd have to click the slicer. Um, the destination or customer, this is where it's going. So this should implicitly mean inbounds. We can see anything that was going into Tokyo maybe this week was we had a lot of units that were late going into Tokyo. So where did they come from? And we need to see why they shipped them late. And then
Okay.
also we have a variety of carriers that are moving this product for us into all these facilities. And maybe we start seeing that a carrier is notoriously late on picking up, like they're responsible for actually moving it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, basically, I consider something like this as like, hey, who screwed up? We're going to find it. Was it the plant? Was it the manufacturer? Or was it the carrier?
Yeah.
And then why? And so this leads me to the right hand side where we have these reason codes. Sometimes, let's say there's a typhoon or, crazy weather. Customs holds you up. Sometimes there's things we just can't control. It's so late and it's just, that's life.
Yeah. Hey,
So we
mate, I'm just gonna say this is freaking awesome. I mean, man, this is I always talk about that thing about that kind of kid in a candy store, and that's what it feels like. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Love that. So hey, folks in the YouTube, let us know what you think. Right? I mean, he's barely started, and I'm pretty blown away. I mean, imagine having this level of insight in your business again, supply chain or not. This is pretty cool. All right, mate. Cool. I feel like you have more stories to tell here, so keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of walk you through the next step. So let's just go through a scenario. I see a big chunk of late. I'm going to
Yeah.
click on that. It filters down the data, and I can see what we have here are reason codes. So when a shipment is late, someone across the supply chain, usually the carrier, will give us some sort of messaging that explains why it was late and if it was controllable or not. These particular ones were controllable.
Hmm.
And you can see here, so we had 180,000 units that were controllable, and we can actually see why, like what the actual issue was. So it was late, it impacted our SLA of on time to promise, and it looks like it was a customs paperwork was missing.
All right.
So that tells me, hey, when they shipped these units, they didn't include the proper paperwork. And so going back to my earlier slide where a
Mm-hmm.
business user would look at this and they would take action. They would go follow up with the contract manufacturer and say, "Hey, you guys forgot to put the proper paperwork on maybe a bunch of pallets for 180,000 units." And then, they go drive that conversation to keep them accountable. Uh, what's really interesting is that these dashboards get used like daily, like by probably
Mm-hmm.
50 to 100 people, to just drive accountability because as all these shipments are moving at a high pace,
Yeah.
they daily can see when things are being dropped and then
Yeah.
go actually take action. At the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, can I have you pause just for a second, because the thought that crossed me was, and we work on this kind of internally in our team as well, and so our coach taught us was when things go wrong, kind of look at process before people, and so I wonder if you have kind of delved into that, like. So obviously somebody can take this dashboard and say, "Hey, you screwed up," and like shout at people, but that wouldn't be the right thing. The right thing, I think, would be, "Hey, let's look at the process." I wonder what kind of your gut feel is that. How do you see businesses operating? Are they uh, are they indeed process focused, or are they, God forbid, like shouting at people like, "Hey, get get in
Yeah,
order." Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, yeah, we all shout at people. No, I definitely agree with kind of where you're going. I think where process is kind of where the problem lies, or that's the biggest opportunity to
Yeah.
kind of tune it up and make it better.
Yeah.
Uh, so kind of relating that, I'll kind of pull from a story from my experience
Uh
here.
huh.
We would attribute blame to our holding facilities and say, you're not getting this out on time to
Hmm.
Best Buy or whoever.
Yeah.
Um, and they said, well, you're expecting us to sticker a sale price on, millions and millions of units, and that stickering takes a lot of time. And
Yeah.
we're just not set up for success. And
Hmm.
so we had to change the process to say, after we noticed that, had that conversation, we said, well, let's just sticker it in China. Yeah, at
Oh,
the manufacturing area. Well, let's sticker it way ahead of time so you don't even have to do that ever again.
wow.
And so that
Brilliant.
saved them the time. And then, you know what I mean? So yeah, to your point, changing the process
Hmm.
in that end-to-end system, it solved the problem. And there was, it was like, hey, where it wasn't about the people not doing their job. It was about, can we optimize the process because it's inefficient right now?
Brilliant. Brilliant, mate. Great. So, hey, let me ask you one other question. And if you have this coming later on, then great. So, you talked about how this is very time critical and people are watching this daily. And
Mhm.
which is good. And daily they watch and they take action. Like, oh, this is late. Let me call up. Let me find out. Let me what's going on. Let me see if I can mitigate that some way. Right? I mean, what does it impact? At least communicate to others. But there has to be somebody who kind of steps back and looks at it kind of overall. I was like, well, not day to day, and yeah, so I'm sure that does happen. Uh, is it coming later on? Otherwise, I'm gonna put a placeholder. I would love to talk more about that if it's
Uh, we don't have a particular slide that tackles that. Not yet, not on this one. Yeah,
got it. But you probably you built something like that, right? Like kind of a higher
correct.
level. Awesome, awesome,
Yep.
great, great, cool, mate. Keep going here.
So that was the end-to-end outbound inbound flow. This is what we consider a distribution center metrics report. Once again, looked at daily for tactical operations. And this is them basically moving product into a particular distribution center and then moving it out in a timely manner. So we consider this, this one's a good one. This particular report we call pick, pack, ship. Once product is stored in a facility, they're going to, when an order comes in, they're going to have to go pick it and find it like physically with a forklift. They're going to have to drive down a huge warehouse, find that particular product in the quantity, sticker it, label it, do what they need to, and then put it literally on a physical truck that's going to drive to the customer. And so this is us measuring the performance of, hey, you were told that this product needed to be at this bay at this time, and you need to go pick it. So we're measuring the time it takes someone to go pick the product, do what they need to do for making it ready to get on the truck, and then putting it on the truck. Sometimes, we're not able to pick effectively and get it out the door within the holding facilities, and that could be due to things like the our equipment was at capacity and we were moving too much product and we couldn't meet demand. That's a perfect one. Now, once we see something like that, we would say, hey, do we have a capacity problem? The action taken is we hire more headcount, we invest in better systems or equipment, and see if there's anything we can do to optimize that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we're doing there to you know make the DC or distribution center more efficient. And once again, we measure their performance weekly as well or daily because if they get the product on time, that's great. However, if they don't get it out of their DC on time, then it doesn't matter. Once again, it's a global Optima problem. And
Mm-hmm.
so we may look at a high level, but we also need to do that click down on each one of these swim lanes. So we have a similar report like this for the manufacturing plant. Need to make sure that they're assembling the product and getting it out the door. The distribution center, they're packaging it however they're putting labels on and doing what they need to do to bundle it up and put it on a particular truck and get it out the door. And then we have another report which would measure the actual carriers and them actually getting it from point A to point B on time. So same kind of layout as you saw. There's some things we can't control. For example, if a DC got the product late to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way in heck you can expect them to get it out of their facility on time. Um, so yeah, that'd be considered uncontrollable because something upstream happened. But then you can see they're pretty good at getting stuff on time. It's not too crazy of work.
All right.
So my kind of last slide is talking about different types of actual analytics that doesn't have to do with tactical. So you kind of talked about this earlier. Within this particular use case or this business, We have operational metrics for the people doing the work, and it's very tactical. That's kind of some of the stuff we ran through here. But we also have scorecards and things like that that kind of bubble it up, and you can measure your efficiency month over month. And that's more at that manager or senior leader level, where they don't necessarily going to use it to change the process, but they're going to start seeing problem areas and start seeing
Mm-hmm.
measuring their performance of their team and the organization. Um, Now that we talked a lot about tactical work, a lot of the other stuff we're doing that I don't necessarily have the time to showcase, but I want to throw out there is more analytics focused things that we can actually measure to improve the process that's already there. Stuff like better batch ordering. Imagine in your organization you get sales, and you may get sales for, let's say, iPhones, and each month you get 30 or 40 purchases of iPhones. You may want to ask Best Buy or whatever retailer's buying those iPhones from you if they could batch their orders all up in 1 month, right? Because if they
Mm-hmm.
make a batch, they buy the same iPhones but all in one purchase. They add it to their cart, 3,000 iPhones on month one.
Yeah.
You're going to pay less for cost per unit shipped because you get bulk shipments.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to piecemeal, and there's not all that overhead of piecemealing all those orders. So changing the batch size. We also see that with any type of manufacturing. You don't want to build one at a time. You want to get a bulk order and then build it and then retool your device to build something new. You don't want to keep retooling to change what you're going to build. Uh, Lane optimization. This has to do with finding the right carrier that is going to deliver product. Uh,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, hey, folks, can you go on mute? Yeah, all right. Christian, you should be back on.
Oh, no worries. So then like lane optimization, this would be, hey, if I'm if I'm optimizing for cost and time, should I go air? Should I go ocean? Should I, what's the mode of transportation that I'm going to use to get from point A to point B?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously air overnight will be a lot more expensive than ocean, which could take, a month to get from port A to port B. But that's some other cool analytics work that we're looking at across, this particular supply chain is how do we optimize when an order comes in for a certain location, like let's say Seattle, Washington. How do we get that from China to Seattle? Is it going to be best going truck
Mm-hmm.
once it gets to the U.S.? It's understanding that whole network. Uh, Another thing that maybe those of you on the call who have had to deal with maybe tariffs or selling globally this past year. Maybe you're familiar with the Trump tariffs. A lot of companies within the supply chain space are trying to figure out how to maneuver and not pay, basically pay on those imports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some things that we've done.
So these are
There's
additional tariffs on some goods coming from China. Is that it? All
correct, yeah,
right.
China specifically. So whether you move your actual manufacturing to a new location like Taiwan or
Wow.
Mexico or whatever, uh, you know the little exercise that we're conducting is we're looking at all of the units or product that was shipped into the U.S. that we paid taxes on from China. But since we sold those goods to either Canada or countries in South America, technically we didn't sell them to people in the US. We just held that product there. And so we
Mm.
actually can recoup those taxes paid because it wasn't actually sold in the US. It was
Wow.
held in the US. And so there's a lot of cool analytics work around that too that could lead to a lot of cost savings. Like, giving that information to your trades team or your finance team and really getting those dollars back that
Yeah.
maybe you impacted this year of.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of all I had for today's session.
Whew.
Yeah.
All right, man. I think that's all I could take it. Oh gosh, that was incredible. Um, so Christian, gosh, I don't even know where to start. And hey, folks. So first of all, folks on the phone, we're gonna go to you for questions first. But just hold on one second. So Christian, what I want to ask you is that I have this theory, right? That data is the edge and all that stuff. I think most people get it. But my theory is that it's not like the companies who invest in data are gonna get ahead and the others are gonna lag behind a little bit. You know, I think that the companies who don't move in this direction are gonna go the way of dinosaur. Because if you're not doing this kind of smart stuff, right? I mean, if you're trying to run a business, and again, could be a local, could be a global. Every business has a multiple system. Every business is complex. If you don't go in this direction, man, you're gonna be out competed, out hustled, out serviced at every point, and it's inevitable. Yeah, I mean, I think you're gonna go out of business. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, where is this going with businesses, them using data, and what's at risk for businesses who don't make this move?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it's you know if you're pushed to grow, and if you don't grow, and you don't adopt the new stuff that obviously people are adopting for a reason. It's giving them a competitive edge. It's giving
Yeah.
them visibility. It's giving them the opportunity to for this example, configure their optimal supply chain, right? They now for the first time can actually visualize it. They can see the dependencies and they can start fine tuning.
Yeah.
We always within this particular industry, we look at Amazon as the gold standard,
Mm-hmm.
uh, right? And before them, 1 day shipping, 2 day shipping, getting getting product to you was kind of a dream. I want Amazon now, you get it
Yeah.
right in your hand.
It's
Um,
crazy.
so how just and they're using insights, they're using analytics to do things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And for somebody who is maybe shipping their own product, you can't necessarily compete with that level of service. So we see it with Amazon. And so if I can get something from Amazon at a lower price point
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that. And
Yeah.
you know that they're using tools like this to do it. Same with Microsoft, Google. A lot of these tech companies are developing the tools
Mm-hmm.
to to give those businesses the upper edge. It just is on them to adopt. So yes, I agree with you. Yeah, if they don't adopt and use the tools and invest in the space, then they won't grow and be able to compete with businesses that are.
Awesome, awesome. Let me switch and a little bit talk about kind of business. So you did say that it's so of course folks who know me, I talk all about kind of this the freedom to be anywhere in the world and have your clients be anywhere in the world. But you did say that you prefer kind of the in-person touch and so forth. And so you're based out of Seattle, right here in my hometown.
Yep.
But where are you right now?
Uh, I'm actually in Southern California right now.
All right, all right.
Yeah, just enjoying some weather.
All right, that's great, terrific. So, uh, tell us a little bit more about how a typical engagement with a client works, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so usually there's two clients that maybe I'd be introduced to or work with. People who just need consulting help. They don't necessarily know where to start, and
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of laying those breadcrumbs out for them to hopefully get to a mature state. So I kind of think of those customers as kind of the crawl, walk, run
Mm-hmm.
customers. They're really starting from little to nothing. Maybe they've got some Excel stuff, some VBA, and they're really just they want to start the journey. uh, those type of customers, I really try to push for training, uh, because a lot of the custom development stuff can be built behind the scenes. But I really believe that them growing that skill in house is going to save them money in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
and them learning what's actually being done and being built is super critical to bring that customer along. The second customer, which are those that maybe don't have their time constrained, they just need something built now. I've had engagements where you're going to go meet with them, you're going to understand the business, like I talked about, and you're going to maybe on site start building rapidly.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a week of development in, and they're already being able to see insights and value out of it, and they're
Yeah.
taking action. Um, I've seen both. I prefer, or I've seen better success for those who invest in their people and training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because having that in house is going to save them money in the long run, and people actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
at a higher level. But yeah, those are the two types of engagements. Uh, I've done custom development on site, which I really enjoy, bringing them along and them seeing progress day one while I'm there.
Yeah.
And I've also done the training, which it's very cool to go and train. However, to be honest, there's only so much you can learn in 3 days.
Hmm.
Those boot camps, they definitely, like I said, get you a jump start. But
Yeah.
there's always kind of an ongoing learning after that. You're not going to learn everything about any product
Hmm.
in 2 or 3 days,
Got
but
it.
at least you'll get started, which is great.
Got it. So, man, you touched on something that I feel pretty passionately about, and pretty much anybody in my circle, definitely all of our Pro Plus members, they get the same kind of Kool-Aid from me, which is that we always say that we blur the line between consulting and training. So when I'm
Mhm.
doing consulting, building a solution, I don't want them to be dependent on me. I want to do as much knowledge transfer as possible. Usually I ask for like a designated contact and somebody and yeah, if I'm on site, then yeah, I would have my work projected on the screen as I'm working on something and so forth. But again, the emphasis is that I empower them, right? I don't walk away and they say, oh, cool, great solution. But every time we need to make a tweak or a change, we need to call Avi. I want them to be, as kind of independent as possible. And it seems you kind of take that approach. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that's fair to say. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it's the best approach, that I've found personally. It's really why I think people bring consultants in rather than go and message their own IT department. They just don't get that level of service.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the old school of consulting. I mean, old school of consulting can sometimes be seen like as a leech, right? I mean, once they attach to you, then, you got to kind
Yeah.
of keep paying them, and you get dependent on them. And on the surface, this seems counterintuitive. This seems like that. Hey, why would I do it? This is not in my best interest. But of course, I disagree. I think that is not only the right thing to do. I think overall, I believe I would say that it is good for me, kind of business wise, financially as well. Because I don't know if I do the right thing, then uh, they'll be more than happy to kind of bring me back if they see that value. And BIIC is kind of limitless, right? There's no limit. It's not like the work is going to be done. So what's your take on that? I mean, does it seem like oh, I'm taking a hit by doing the right thing, or by doing the right thing, it actually benefits the consultant in the long run as well?
Yeah, no, I've seen both approaches, so I'll kind of maybe explain like some of the things I've seen in the industry, not naming names.
Yeah.
I have seen consultants that maybe go for the job security approach. They build stuff kind of in a silo. They're not doing the knowledge sharing thing, and they really
Yeah.
sink their teeth into a customer in a way. Um, I think from a monetary perspective, yeah, they're going to make a lot of money up front, but I think eventually the customer is going to get smart and they're
Hmm.
going to go the other path. They're going to look for someone who is training their people. They're going to look for, because ultimately it's a cheaper, more risk adverse approach. Um, so I've seen people do that, and yes, for a consultant, it could pay off big in the short term. But I'm a long term kind of guy, and
Yeah,
I
love it.
believe in doing the right thing. And so, to
Oh,
your point, like I
beautiful.
think if you do the right thing day one, and you go in with the right genuine mentality of just helping them,
Yeah.
they're going to trust you and bring you in on more deals later on because you are that type of person.
Yeah, that's great. When you were talking about the first scenario, the person who doesn't do the right thing, I remember seeing some folks where they would make it way more complex than it needed to be.
Yeah.
Just so that the customer can't figure it out. Like, oh, this is way beyond me. But anyway, that's great. So hey, yeah, and by the way, what you said about kind of the long game definitely reminded me of what Charles Ilwood, he's on the call as well, has talked about the Simon Sinek's idea of the infinite game, right? I mean, and playing
Mhm.
that. That's great, mate. So I don't want to be selfish here. So folks on the phone, uh, if you have any questions, this is a great time to ask Christian. I'll also say that Christian would also be coming in to teach a masterclass just to focus on our Pro Plus folks. So that's kind of coming soon. But if you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll see if you. Yeah, that's probably gonna work best. And meanwhile, I'll check the YouTube board as well. Yeah, folks. So let us know overall what you felt about today's presentation. If there was one thing of value that you learned, I always like approaching things that way. Where it's like, hey, every person you meet, has something they can teach you. So let us know if you learned something today from this presentation. Mm, okay, cool. So, class folks, don't be shy. Do we have any questions from folks on the phone? All right. So, all right. And I'm not seeing any questions pop up right away on the YouTube. There are some comments earlier. Yeah, Mikola said, "This is crazy!" Exclamation mark! Really incredible, fantastic, awesome, fantastic. So yeah, definitely quite some positive feedback there. So, Christian, let us end on this note. So, somebody may look at this and frankly, kind of your title, applied data scientist. I mean, that scares me. So somebody is starting out. This would seem overwhelming. This would seem beyond reach, right? I mean, they like data. They feel passionate about it. It kind of lights them up, maybe. But then
Hmm.
they see this and they say, "Oh, I can't do that. That's not me." And yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna give up right now. No, I don't want them to give up. So, what would be your advice to them who's kind of starting out but is getting kind of a little freaked out about what they're seeing? That, oh guys, this is too much. This is too advanced. This is not for me.
Yeah, I would, I would say the biggest thing is investing in yourself. If you give your employer or whatever you're getting your dollars from, if you give them your whole life energy, you're not going to grow yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So really taking the time to invest in yourself, to learn the tools, learn the business, and in a way, be kind of selfish for a little bit, so you can add that value. And start that internal journey of growing yourself first, because that's the only way you can help others. I think of when you go on an airplane, they say secure your own mask before you help anybody else. It's the same
Yeah.
with these tools and skill sets. Learn the Power BI stuff, deliver value with Power BI. Go learn some Python and do some machine learning models. Just really take the time to invest yourself first. Show some value to the business or your customers, and then repeat. I think that's kind of how I started. Right? Is hey, I'm building reports. Everyone's kind of always still building reports,
Yeah.
but now I'm writing algorithms and doing a lot of stuff in Python. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't have done that if I didn't keep investing in myself. Uh,
Love it,
yeah.
man. That's
So
beautiful. All right, folks. Invest in
Bobby, can I
yourself.
have one
Be a
question?
CEO. Yeah, that's Charles. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to follow up a little bit on that. So, developing yourself. So what's the next stage for you? Kind of, Avi's been asking a lot of MVPs and ourselves, about what's our goals for next year. So you've got Python, you've got R, you've got dashboards and beautiful dashboard, but what's the next step? Where are you going next? Is kind of my
yeah,
question.
that's a great question. So a lot of stuff I'm looking into right now, there's this platform called the Bonsai platform.
Hmm.
More looking future looking, taking the same approach where, hey, you build a report and it's kind of meaningless if no one's taking action. You can build machine learning models that spit out a number. Think of something that's like, what's the weather going to be tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And a regression problem spits out, I think it's going to be 70 degrees. It's still just a number. And so within the machine learning data science space, I'm looking at applications. So think of like a robot doing something, right? Like it's taking an algorithm, it's taking some machine learning, and it's going to take action. So it's really that AI wave. So I'm really starting to delve into robotics.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Christian, big thank you again. So again, folks, you can reach out and connect to Christian. The link is in the description of the video you're watching right now on YouTube. And definitely do that if you feel like what he showed is something that you can get help with for your own company. And again, it doesn't have to be a supply chain. Again, and every company has that. We have lots of different systems which are connected together. sometimes by duct tape. That's okay. But you can see what data can bring to you and help you kind of slowly go on that path of continuous improvement. So Christian, thanks again, mate. It was awesome to have you on. And
Thanks,
folks, we'll
Avi.
see you next time on Talk Power BI. All right, take care,
Thanks,
guys.
guys. Bye.